The night of my family's birthday dinner was supposed to be just another get-together, another routine evening. But that night changed everything for me. It started off with my dad handing me socks, not wrapped up with any sort of care, just a pair of cheap, generic wool socks, rolled up in his hand like he was handing me some sort of obligation. "You bike to work, right?" he asked casually. "These are thermal." I looked at the socks and then back at him, forcing a smile. "Cool," I said. I didn't care about the gift. It wasn't the socks that stung. It was everything behind them, the years of it. I had paid for their house, their utilities, their phone plans. I had co-signed loans. I had stepped in every time they needed something, but never, not once, had anyone acknowledged how much I gave. Not the sacrifices I made. Just the quiet expectation that I'd always be there. I took a deep breath and said, "Then he can pay your bills this month." My dad blinked, just for a second, and in that blink, I saw the smugness slip off his face. But I didn't stick around to wait for a response. I didn't need to. I turned and walked out of the room. I didn't wait for anyone to say anything else. I left. I didn't even go home. I didn't even go back to my apartment. I drove to the utility company, already dialing them on speakerphone while I was still in my car. I took care of the bills for my parents. But when it came down to it, I wasn't the son anymore. I was just a bank. And I was done. The next morning, the power went out at my parents' house. I didn't answer their calls. Not me mom's, not my dad's, and certainly not Josh's. They called and texted me over and over, but I just let them sit in my inbox, unread. I didn't need to listen to their panic. They didn't realize that the lights were in my name, the gas, the water, everything. All of it was tied to me since set 2020, when Dad lost ours and Josh moved back home. That was when I started paying the bills. That was when I became their safety net. But that was all over. I wasn't their backup anymore. I wasn't their ATM. I was done being the one they leaned in. Around 13 hours after the blackout, my phone finally rang. It was my mom first, then Dad, and then Josh. There were missed calls, voicemails, even a shaky video of their kitchen in the dark, candles flickering in the background. They were in full panic mode, but I still didn't answer. I let it all sink in, feeling that quiet satisfaction when you realize that for the first time, you're not obligated to save them. I got a text from Josh next. "You could have warned us," it read. "Your mom's cold. Daniel, is that what you want? You're acting out over socks." He even added a laughing emoji at the end, like it was some sort of joke. I screenshotted it just so I could remember that tone. Then came the group chat. Mom added me back in. They had created a new group chat with the hopeful title, Family First. It was like they wanted to play the reconciliation game, but I wasn't having it. Mom sent the first message. "Mom, can we just talk like adults?" Then Dad, "You've made your point. Josh, dude, seriously, grow up." I replied calmly. "You're right. It's not love, it's survival." And then I left chat. For good. Let me be clear, this didn't all start with the socks. It didn't start with the car either. That was just the spark that lit the fire. The fuel had been there for years. It was subtle at first: phone bills, small loans, helping with medical costs. I had co-signed loans, fixed their internet issues, covered rent, and stepped in whenever something broke down. The more I helped, the more they expected. In 2021, I paid off Josh's gambling debt $3,000 just because he begged. "Just this once," I said. But I later found out he used part of that money for concert tickets. I helped Dad replace his laptop when he spilled whiskey on it. And when I asked him how it was working, he threw me a passive-aggressive comment about how it wasn't a Mac. I helped Mom get $6. Oh, for her dental surgery, only for her to tell her friends that she covered it herself after some tight budgeting. And when I lost my job for 2 months during a company restructuring, not a single one of them asked how I was holding up. But I still kept paying the bills. I kept sending money. It was just until tax season, I told myself. They were just stressed. But then came the birthday dinner. That's when I knew things had to change. I hadn't seen my parents in months, and I thought this dinner might be different. I even brought a bottle of wine, a gift from my mother, and I had shaved for the occasion. I wanted to look presentable, for whatever that meant. Josh was already there, of course, always late, always in the group selfies, always the golden child. And there it was, the brand new hybrid SUV parked in the driveway, gifted by my parents. They said it was because I lived too far to visit, but I knew it was because Josh had always been the one they bragged about, the one they posted on social media, the one Dad always called the good son at church. When I stepped inside, Josh, with his trademark smirk, said, "Guess you'll be flying solo again this year." I didn't respond at first. I just let it hang in the air. We went through the motions of small talk, ignoring the Christmas cards I'd sent. Then, my dad stood up, raised his glass, and toasted to Josh for being the one who shows up. That's when the socks came. A tight roll of discount wool pressed into my hand with all the love of a participation trophy. "They're thermal," Dad added. I stared at the socks, then back at him. I said, "Right," and then I realized that the math didn't add up. I had paid their mortgage, their utilities, their phone plans. I'd sent money for rent. I'd helped with medical costs. And this was my reward. But I didn't say a word. I smiled, and I left. I stepped outside, got into my car, and I called the utility company. That was the last family dinner I ever attended. The next morning, I sat back in my chair and cracked open a soda, watching my inbox fill up with notifications, missed calls, voicemails, and texts, one after the other. "Daniel, why didn't you warn us? Your mom is freezing. Is this really about socks?" That last one was from Josh. I could practically hear his insincere tone and the laughing emoji at the end. It only made my blood boil. I didn't respond, though. I didn't even bother to open the voicemails. They could feel the weight of what they had done. They had treated me like a backup plan for so long, they'd never once considered what would happen if I stopped playing that role. Then came the group message. I was added back into the Family First chat, as if everything could be patched up with a few words. Mom's message was the first. "Can we just talk like adults?" Dad followed, "You've made your point." Josh's text was snarkier. "Seriously, grow up." I let the messages sit for a moment. The old part of me wanted to jump in, explain myself, let them off the hook in some way. But that part of me haddied the second I left that dinner. Instead, I calmly replied, "You're right. It's not love. It's survival." And just like that, I left the chat again. But this time, it wasn't a temporary silence. It was final. This didn't start with the socks. This didn't even start with the hybrid SUV. The story goes back much further. Years of being the one they called when things went wrong. Years of me sacrificing me own peace to take care of their problems without a single ounce of recognition. I had paid off Josh's gambling debt in 2021 $3,000, just because he promised it would be the last time. And I found out months later that he used some of the money for concert tickets. There was Dad with his laptop, ruined by whiskey, and when I replaced it, all I got was a comment about how it wasn't a Mac, like my efforts meant nothing. Mom, who I'd helped with $6, for her dental surgery, proudly told her church friends that she had paid for it herself after some tight budgeting. And when I lost my job during the company restructuring, not a single call to check if I was okay. But I still paid their bills. I still sent money. I kept telling myself that it would all get better, that they were just stressed, that they didn't mean to take me for granted. But this dinner, this moment, was the breaking point. Josh, with his hybrid SUV, his casual attitude, and his perfect little life, had everything handed to him. The SUV was his reward for being the one who showed up to Dad's birthday dinner. Me, I showed up with a bottle of wine and a gift for my mother, and I got socks. But it wasn't the gift that hurt, it was the math behind it. The fact that I was paying half their mortgage, that I was covering their phone bills, their utilities, and their internet. I once wired money from a hotel bathroom at 3 a.m. on a work trip because Mom told me the heater had broken. They couldn't sleep in the cold, and yet it was invisible to them. It wasn't until the power went out that the truth finally hit them. They called me again. They texted me. They left me voicemails. I let it all go straight to voicemail. I didn't care anymore. The power, the gas, the water, those were all in my name. They depended on me, but they'd never respected me. And now, when things got tough, they were the ones left in the dark, literally. And then I received that Facebook post. 2 days after the blackout, Josh posted a photo of him and Dad standing next to the new SUV, smiling. Still standing, still family, he wrote, followed by, "Some people are just bitter. I didn't screenshot it. I didn't need to. I downloaded it." This wasn't ignorance anymore. It was a declaration of war. So I dug. I didn't have to dig deep. My father had been quietly siphoning money from a joint checking account I had opened when they couldn't figure out online banking. It was small at first, $40 sheer, $90 steer, but it added up. And the final blow? Dad had accidentally sent a $600 wire transfer from the account to a car parts dealer under Josh's name, the same week he told me he was barely getting by. That's when I knew I needed receipts. I printed everything. The bank transfers, the utility bills, the Venmo logs where Josh sent his girlfriend $500 with the note for the cabin, a cabin I wasn't invited to. But that wasn't all. I had a cousin, Lily, who worked in security. She owed me a favor. I asked her to check if anything strange had happened under my name. She found 2 things. Someone had tried to open a credit card using my social, and someone had submitted a request to change the billing address for the family internet. Guess whose name was on the request? Josh's. Dad's signature. Mom's phone number listed as the backup. I wasn't mad anymore. I was focused. They wanted to play dirty? Fine. I could play smarter. They put everything together into a digital folder I called The Cost of Blood. Inside, I had everything: bank statements, screenshots of Josh mocking me, emails from Dad asking for discreet help, recordings of Mom saying, "Well, you're doing better than your brother. You can afford to help," and photos off birthday dinner table. My chair was empty. I sent it to myself. IBCCD. It to 3 trusted people. I backed it up twice, once on a USB drive and once in the cloud. I wasn't going to publish it. Not yet. I needed to make sure they saw it coming. When the house lost heat completely because the gas was off, and the landlord refused to fix the broken furnace without payment, they had no choice but to call me again. This time, I answered. Dad's voice was tight and controlled. He started with, "Daniel, I think we've all overreacted." I didn't say a word. He continued, "It's just been a tough winter. Your brother, he's been going through some things. He's trying his best." I waited a moment. Then I said, "Good. Then he can pay your bills this month." Dad paused. "What do you want from us?" I replied calmly, "Nothing. I'm just returning the favor. You treated me like a backup plan. I'm treating you like a footnote." Then I hung up. That night, I did something I had thought about for a while. I started a blog. The title was simple. My family gave my brother a car and me a pair of socks, so I shut off the power. The tagline was, "A guide to setting boundaries when love is a one-way transaction." It wasn't revenge. It was release. And they hadn't even seen the worst of it yet. 2 weeks later, I showed up at my mom's birthday dinner, exactly at 6:00 p.m. Nothing fancy in my hands, just a cheap bottle of wine and a plain white envelope. No announcement, no warning. They probably assumed I was done with them for good. But I wasn't there for reconciliation. I was there to end things properly, to make sure they saw what losing me really looked like. Dad opened the door. his face tight like he'd just gotten an audit notice. "What are you doing here?" he asked flatly. I smiled, celebrating Mom. Or was that invitation just for Raoul family again? He stepped aside stiffly. No hug, no small talk. The living room was full Mom, Josh, even cousin Elise, who always found it amusing when someone else got humiliated. The table was set. The decorations were up. It looked normal for now. I placed the envelope patiently in the center of the table. Josh squinted at it. "What's that?" he asked. "Some things I found," I said calmly. "Thought Wes should all have a look." Inside were 3 documents. A credit card application in my name, signed and approved, dated 2 months ago. My name, but not my signature. An order confirmation for a $1,200 smartphone, shipped to Josh's address, built to my card. A printout of an email from Mom's Gmail account, left logged in on my iPad during Christmas last year. It said, "Dan always pays. He won't even notice." Dad snatched the envelope and started fumbling through the papers, muttering something about misunderstandings. I said, "Oh, comin'. What are the odds that all 3 of these mistakes happen to benefit you?" Mom stood up, her face a mixture of shock and guilt. "We were struggling. You used to help. What changed?" I met her eyes. I stopped pretending this was family. That's what changed. Then I slid another sheet across the table, a screenshot from my bank. A $600 wire transferred to a car parts store under Josh's name from my account. Josh turned pale. "I thought it was your backup card," he stammered. "I was going to pay it back." "When? Before or after you bought that PlayStation?" I said, cutting him off. He shut up. Mom collapsed into her chair, her legs giving out. Dad stared at Thadable, his jaw tight, fists clenched. He was still trying to maintain control, but he didn't have it anymore. I pulled out my phone, hit play on a voicemail to my insurance provider, where Mom pretended to be me, trying to update my policy, add new prescriptions, and even add Josh as a dependent. I looked at her. "You didn't think I'd notice?" She shook her head, silent. "And you?" I turned to Dad. "Still want to tell me you haven't touched that joint account?" No answer. Josh exploded then. "This is insane. You're blowing up the family over some bills and a phone?" "No," I said, calm and steady. "I'm blowing it up because of the years you pretended I was just a resource. You lied. You stole. And now, you're offended that I noticed." I slid one last document across the table. It was a handwritten note, a checklist from their kitchen. The title, "Ways to Reduce Dependency on Daniel." There were 5 bullet points. Number 3, start moving bills to his name slowly. He won't notice. Silence fell, cold, dense. No one said a word. Josh walked out to the balcony. Mom covered her face, and Dad just stared at the wall like it would offer him an escape. Then Dad finally spoke, his voice low, controlled. "You trying to destroy us?" I stepped closer, calm and slow. "You destroyed me, piece by piece, bill by bill, lie by lie. I'm just returning the favor all at once." And I walked out. I didn't go home. I didn't go to my apartment. I just drove. No GPS. No destination, just the open freeway. And the kind of silence you only get when something big inside you finally dies. I ended up in a motel 2 towns over, some place with flickering lights and too much bleach in the sheets. But it felt cleaner than anything I just left behind. The next morning, my phone was full of missed calls, 36 of them, 12 voicemails, 3 blocked numbers, and 1 text from Josh that simply said, "This isn't over." He was right. It wasn't. Not even close.